What's up, Rip City? This is the Scorchin Trails podcast, episode 3. I'm Steven Vaughan with my man Torey Jones, and I said last time, Torey, I'm 1 for 1 on breaking news this season. Count me 2 for 2 now. We got some breaking news here. Scorchin Trails available on Spotify. If you don't want to catch us on YouTube, you don't want to see our mugs, just listen to us on Spotify. So, Torey, how about that? Steven Vaughan, 2 for 2 in news breaking. How does it feel to be real with a real newsbreaker here? That's your partner.
Feels pretty good because I am your source.
That's true. My source was Torey Jones on this one. But yeah, no, that's catch us on Spotify. I think it's big, man. You're doing big things out here, Torey. That's all I know. But how about them Blazers? Speaking of big things, preseason wrapping up. Wrapped up, and we're heading into the regular season. You know what? I feel like today we need to kind of get into some predictions type stuff. Maybe some wins for the Blazers, but stats. I kind of want to get into some stats. How about that? You feeling that today?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know Eric and Crushables on their podcast did like general NBA predictions. We have our predictions stream on Monday, but with you especially, I want to dive into some more Blazer-related predictions and get your thoughts on some of these players and just see how much we align on certain things and how much we disagree. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, no doubt. Because you never know where I'm going to be. And I may just say things just to say things, but usually I believe it. Usually I believe what I say. So we'll jump into it. And usually, the first topic and the first guy that kind of always a little bit of a lightning rod for us. Let's start with Anthony Simons. How about that? Mm-hmm. Points per game. Let's go Anthony Simons points per game. I mean, you look at him last season. Very, very consistently shooting the ball well. 44.5%, 37.5% from 3, 21 points a game. You expect that probably to go up a little bit this season now that Dame is in Milwaukee. I would put the over at about 22.5 or so. I know our friends at BetUS, maybe they got something over there sooner or later, but 22.5 points, I would probably take the over because I think he's going to get to about 23 points a game this season. I think he takes that step up. And the efficiency is still going to be there, but I do need to see a lot of improvement just to, inside, get to the basket, making plays for others. But I think he's going to be the go-to scorer from day one. So I would say right around 23. But if I'd put the line at 22.5, Torey, what would you put it at?
Oh, I think that's a relatively easy over compared to where the line would be.
Easy over, huh?
Yeah, I think Chauncey's just going to rely on him heavily offensively in the half court because I think with some of the other guys in the system, especially some of the youth, they may be able to get out and run and play at a fast pace, but like Scoot Henderson especially, I do have some concerns, and we'll get into it. Some concerns about his play in the half court, and this team in the preseason didn't really look too great in the half court and looked a little stagnant, and I think a lot of the offense, especially early on as they build chemistry, will be giving the ball to Anthony Simons, kind of like they would just give the ball to Dame and letting him go to work, and then also really good catch and shoot guys. So playing off of Scoot, I think he'll excel. So I think Chauncey is going to heavily rely on Ant this season. My prediction, I'll do it down to the decimal point. We'll see how close it is. 23.4 points per game for Anthony Simons this year.
Okay, 23.4. You were written it down. If it's not exactly that, I will be calling you out that you don't know what you're talking about. All right. So I think we're both over on Anthony Simons. The thing is like we kind of disagree on Anthony Simons as a player, but I think we're both on the same page this year for Ant. Like he's got the potential to be that guy. Like he should be the guy this season. So we'll see how that lands. The other veteran on the team, Jeremy Grant, second longest tenured Portland Trailblazer. I'm looking at a different betting website here, not BetUS, which is where you should go if you want to do some your betting. But they have a number up for Jeremy Grant at 20.4 points per game and an over/under. I would probably take the under on that. I like Jeremy Grant. I think he's a solid NBA player. Averaged 20.5 last season for what it is, so he would have gone over that number a season ago. He averaged 22 a game when he was in Detroit 2 seasons ago, but I would say under that. I don't think he quite gets to 20 points this year. There's different options, and it's going to be a lot more of him where I think it's going to be him isolating more, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be a lot more. He had some catch and shoots last year at the start of the season when Dame was getting it to him, and, people were really focused on Dame. I don't know that's going to be happening this year as much for Jeremy Grant, so I would take the under on him. I also think and we'll talk about this a little later. I think there's potential he could get traded as well, and if he gets traded, the possessions that he get is going to go down. So if I had to bet, I would say under 20.5 points per game for Jeremy Grant. I'd put him at about 18, 19. I'll go 18.8 for Jeremy Grant.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we agree. I am also leaning towards the under with Jeremy Grant. That is a harder line to pick. But yeah, I think Jeremy did a really good job playing off of Damian Lillard last year. I also think that 3-point percentage that was over 40%. If I had to bet, I would think he would be below 40% this year. I think that was just kind of like a career shooting year for Jeremy Grant. And as the season went along, remember he started like 47% from three or something insane over the first month and a half, and then slowly trailed off. I don't think he's going to hit 3-point shots at 40%. If I had to guess, probably around like 37% or so. So that's going to bring down the scoring a bit. And then I don't know if he's going to get the same amount of minutes. It depends on how the season goes. You got some young power forwards behind him that maybe the Blazers try and get a look at. It's hard to tell what the minutes balance is going to be between veterans trying to do everything to win now and trying to get a look at these young guys. But yeah, I would probably predict it right around 19.5 to 20 points per game. So that would be the under.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Just kind of the depth that the Blazers have, and how it is pretty interesting. So those young guys you talk about, how many minutes are they going to get? Will they be starting? Will they be coming off the bench? Just they got a lot of dudes that I don't know where they fit in the NBA, and I think they're going to figure it out. So Jeremy Grant, it could be one of those things where he loses a couple minutes here and there, but we'll see. Next guy, let's talk about the new guy in town, DeAndre Ayton. Last year he was 18 points a game. Shot 59%. I would have to put the number as higher than that. Like, if I had to make this line, I would put it at 18.9 points per game. Would I go over that? No, I wouldn't. I think that he's going to be right around 18 again this season. I don't know. I don't think he's going to have necessarily a career year like he says he's going to, or that people may think he's going to. I think he's going to be, a consistent, 17 points, 10 rebounds, something like that. Kind of like he has been his whole career. So I don't think he's really going to make that big enough jump. Just the way the game is played, like he is what he is. Like he can pick and roll, and he can finish at the hoop with the dunk. He can shoot the ball a little bit, but I don't think the 3-point shot is ever going to develop to be a big time thing for DeAndre. I know you want to talk about that a little bit, but if I put the line at 18.9 points per game, Torey, so that would be a career high in points per him. If he went over that, would you go over or under?
I think it's entirely dependent. That line is entirely dependent upon him knocking down threes, because I feel like what he is offensively has been, for the most part, maximized, and Suns fans have talked about, like, oh, he needs more touches. The problem is he's not somebody you give the ball to and he creates his own. Like, he has to get a lot of his looks out of the flow of the offense.
He's reliant on others, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And in today's NBA, you're not going to give a dude 25 post-ups a game. And defenses will double and then rotate and game plan for that. Like, you're not able to run offense through the post quite like you were, 20 to 25 years ago when there was some different defensive rules. So I don't think Ayton gets to 19, 20 points per game unless he adds something. And that would, in my opinion, have to be the 3-point shot. Now, I do think he has a chance. I just think as far as the 3-ball goes, he shoots the ball too flat, and that's been the biggest reason why he hasn't been able to stretch his game out from mid-range, where he shoots the ball pretty well, to the 3-point line, is just because that shot is so flat. The flatter your shot is, the harder it is to kind of extend your range, in my opinion. So I think that's the key for him, is trying to get a little bit more arc on his shot if he's going to become a 3-point shooter. And apparently he's worked on it all off season. Apparently that's like the one thing he wants to change the narrative about, right? It's funny how he came into media day saying, I'm dominating. And then, a couple interviews later, he's like, yeah, I just worked on my 3-point shot. Kind of interesting little contrast there. But I would probably go the under if I had to predict, like 17.5 points per game. I just think, with the chemistry that has yet to be built between this team, and the fact that he's reliant upon others and needs others to feed him quite a bit, and doesn't have the lob throwers that he's had in Phoenix. Hasn't had, the elite guards that he's had in Phoenix with Devin Booker and then Chris Paul, good passing point guard. I actually think it might be a little bit of a downtick, if anything. So 17.5 points per game is my prediction.
How about this one? We can compare these guys, Nurk and DeAndre Ayton. Also, by the way, Nurkic showing true use of Nurkic style in the preseason, having really good games and then having really poor games. Expect that, Phoenix Suns fans. But let's say Nurk, 36%, three-point percentage shooting last season. Who ends up a higher three-point percentage shooter between DeAndre Ayton and Yusuf Nurkic this year, Torey Jones?
I think it's easily Nurk, man. Nurk's form is better. His form from three is better.
But you think Ayton can shoot, though, huh?
I think Ayton might have more touch than Nurk, but I think Nurkic is a better three-point shooter because he has a more optimal shooting form for shooting threes, and also he's found that confidence shooting the three ball, because that's a big thing as a shooter. You know that, Steven, is having the confidence, having the green light. I think Ayton will have more of a green light than ever in Portland, so it'll be interesting to see if he can develop some sort of confidence behind the three-point arc. I think if he did, he could be, maybe a 34%er in that range. But Nurk, given what he showed last year and given the fact that he's started shooting them in games and found some confidence from there, I think Nurkic will be higher. I expect him to shoot 35%, 36%, somewhere in there.
Yeah, you look at Nurk last season, kind of when he started shooting threes, it was like right at the start of January. He shot 3 threes a game, basically, for the Blazers. How many do you want DeAndre Ayton shooting from the start of the year? Because, you guys talked about this. Chauncey's okay with letting dudes let it fly, and DeAndre Ayton said he's worked on it. Chauncey seems like he's willing to let him at least give a shot at the start of the year. Do you want DeAndre Ayton shooting like 2 threes a game, a 3 a game? Like, what are you feeling on that? Because for me, last season he shot almost a half a 3 a game. For me, that's about right. Like once every 2 games, shoot a 3-pointer, DeAndre Ayton. I think it's hard when you've played 5 years in the NBA. If you really haven't developed the 3-point shot consistently, like he may not have it. But maybe he does. Maybe he can surprise me and do that. Everyone's going to go to like Brook Lopez, who developed that, but he also came to the NBA when it was a different game and then developed it to stay in the league. DeAndre Ayton, since he's been in the league, big guys have been able to shoot threes. So I think he'll be a little higher than that. I don't think he shoots like 1 a game, but what are you thinking about for DeAndre?
For me, it's whenever you're completely wide open from behind the arc, go ahead and shoot it. If your defender is 5 feet, 6 feet off, you shoot the 3 ball. Because I think if he's going to be shooting threes, he needs to have the mentality of like, if I'm open, I'm shooting the ball, because that's the only way he's going to shoot a good enough percentage. Because in the end, I think it comes down to confidence. So I don't think it's necessarily like a number that you put on it. I think it's something where it's like, if you're completely unguarded beyond the 3-point line, shoot the 3 ball, because it kind of goes to a philosophical thing, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Like, if Portland isn't trying to turn DeAndre Ayton into a star caliber big man, then why did they trade for him? Right? Why did they trade for a guy on a max contract if they weren't going to see if they could get him to another level of production? And for me, like, he's already pretty good, 18-10, right? But when you look at the stars of the league, like, that's kind of the next step, is being that star caliber big. What all-stars in the NBA can't shoot threes, don't create their own shot, and aren't like a really, really good passer like a Domantas Sabonis? There's none. The only one you could say is maybe Bam Adebayo, but if he wasn't... But Bam can pass, and Bam is like a top 3-4 defensive big in the league. Like, he's a better defender. The other one would be Jaren
Jackson.
Yeah, and he was a fringe all-star, and he was, defensive player of the year last year? Yeah. So, unless you're absolutely elite defensively, there's no other star caliber players that don't shoot threes or don't create their own shot or aren't elite passers. So, like, if you're going to get DeAndre Ayton to that level of being a star caliber big, growth has to come from somewhere, and I feel like the most likely area would be him developing some sort of 3-point shot. Because then in the best scenario is if he's knocking down threes, guys close on him, maybe he can attack closeouts and drive a little bit. Maybe he can create a little bit.
Wouldn't it just be defense? Like, become an elite defender like he says he can be, or Chauncey says he could be a first-team all-defender. Like, that's the obvious way to pick up your game and become an all-star. Like, I just feel like that. I don't think he's going to either. But, like, I think that's the easiest path for him than to be like, I'm going to become a knockdown 3-point shooter, or at least an average 3-point shooter. I mean, for all the good talk that you gave Nurk for shooting threes last year, after, in 22 games from January 1st on, he shot 27% from three, when he shot 3 threes a game. Like, that's not good. So, like, I don't.
Smaller sample.
22 games, dude, he shot 27%. He shot 3 threes a game. That's not good.
On a bigger sample, he shot 40% probably. So, I mean, that's the thing is
yeah, but
guys are inconsistent shooting threes. Like, you find, unless you're talking about the best shooters in the league, you find a 20-game sample, 22-game sample from, like, a role player that's not an elite three-point shooter, and you'll probably be able to find a 22-game sample where they aren't shooting the three ball.
Like, when he shoots less threes, he shoots a higher percent. When he started shooting more threes with the Blazers, that's when he started missing. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, just looking to Nasir Little. 1 month it's 43%. 1 month it's like 22%.
Well,
I mean,
I don't want to talk about Nasir Little. He's not on the team anymore. I'm tired of talking about that guy.
Perfect example of these guys aren't going to consistently shoot the three ball. Nurkic is never going to be like consistently 38% constantly over the course of the season. He's going to have a 20-game stretch where he probably shoots the ball at 38, 39, 40%, and he's going to have a 20-game stretch where he shoots at 30%.
All I'm saying is I just don't want DeAndre Ayton out there shooting 3 threes a game. That's all I want. Like, I understand.
Do you want him catching the ball at the top of the three-point arc when he's not guarded and just not even looking at the rim and turning and just waiting for a guard to hand the ball off to? That's what we're paying him a max contract to do?
Yeah. That is what they're paying him to do, because that's what he does better. I don't want him to take shots where he's not going to make them. If he can make those shots, sure, shoot him. But I don't think that he's going to make them. He hasn't in his career. Why would he start now?
I think you got to find out, though, because it just defeats the purpose of the trade if you're not trying to figure out where you can find any sort of growth from him beyond what he gave Phoenix in his Suns days.
I agree. Let him go for it. I just, I think if the Blazers are actually trying to win, like, that's not the style to go with. It's not going to be because DeAndre Ayton's shooting and making threes. It's just not the reason why I think the Blazers would win. So let him do what he wants. And if he shoots and makes some threes and becomes a shooter, I think it's a plus. But I wouldn't expect him to do that. I would just hope that he becomes a better defender. Like he's even talked about that. Like, just play with more effort and be dominating on that end of the court. It's going to lead to everything. You get a block shot, you get a fast break led by this guy, Scoot Henderson. I feel like, we talked about Scoot this season. Last year, you look in the G League, of course, G League, NBA, a little different, but he averaged, 16.5 points a game for the G League Ignite. Let's just put his number at 16.5, I guess. It's probably a little low, but what would you say on his Torey, over or under? 16.5 points, Scoot Henderson.
Man. I want you to go first. This is my, you ask the questions, and every now and then I will defer to you, and this is one of those.
I think 16.5 is actually a pretty good number. I just said that off the top of my head. Let's see. I had Ayton under, Grant under, Simons over. I would go slightly over on Scoot Henderson. I think it could be because after the trade deadline, if the Blazers are out of it, Scoot's still going to play some. Like, they're not going to just fully tank with Scoot Henderson on the bench. And so at that point, it's kind of like Shaedon Sharpe at the end of last season when he got the ball a lot more. He's going to get more shots. And so I think that points per game could go up higher. But I think in the games that actually matter at the start of the year, when they're, actually trying to win ball games and they're seeing how good they really are, I think 16 is about right. But I would go over. I think he's a little over 16.5 points. I love Scoot Henderson. I think he's going to have a lot of mistakes this season. He's 19 years old. We've seen that in the preseason, just some of the stuff he does. But I think ultimately, like, he's going to be the dude over Anthony Simons at some point. And so I think it starts even this season. Like, he's the alpha on this team, and he's the guy. So I would take the over on Scoot.
I'm taking the under. I'm going about 15.5 points per game is going to be my prediction. I just think the three-point shot isn't there all the way for him yet, and it needs some work. And until then, guys are going to be going under on screens. Guys are going to be backing up when he drives. Like, his shot did not give me confidence in the preseason. Like, he hit a couple spot-up catch-and-shoot shots. I don't know what his percentage was, but I don't think the shot's all the way there, and I think it's going to take him some time at the start of the season to adjust to driving against the biggest, strongest, most athletic, best shot blockers in the league.
So if I put the number at 30% for 3 points, 3-point percentage this year, what would you say?
I'd go over. I think he shoots about 32% from three. I don't think he's that bad of a 3-point shooter. It's just the off the dribble stuff as a point guard. Like, I think catch and shoot, spot up, he'll knock down enough of those to be like a 32, 33% or even. But, you want to be able to, as a point guard, punish guys for going under pick and rolls so that they'll start going over, and then it's easier for him to drive and really, truly play to his strengths. So I think, being able to keep defenders honest will be a big key for him. Not only just he needs to be a better three-point shooter, but it also make it easier for him to get to the rim, get into the mid-range, collapse the defense, and just open up his entire game. So
looking at his stats, sorry, Torey, he was 5 of 17 on threes in the preseason, 29%.
Yeah, 29%. So maybe he doesn't shoot as many as 4 a game. I could see that being a little bit less. I just think there is going to be some growing pains with Scoot. And also, I'm not as confident, and this can be our next question. I don't have it on the script here, but I'm not as confident that the Blazers tank as much as they did the past couple of years, because I truly believe that they do not want to tank, because you look at the last couple of years and the way fans were checked out at the end of the season, didn't care at the end of the season for like an extended period of time because they tanked for quite a while at the end of the last 2 years. I think they really want to avoid having another season end with the past final, couple of months, the fans not caring. I think they want the fans invested till the end. I think they will try, and if they're a couple games out of a play-in with 10 games left, I think they'll be gunning for the play-in. Especially in this year's draft where the top, you don't have a Victor Wembanyama, you don't even have a Scoot Henderson. So I think that, I know it's kind of assumed by a lot of Blazer fans, like, oh yeah, they'll end up tanking the last month and a half, 2 months. I'm not so sure about that. I don't think they end up tanking at all, even.
Well,
if they do, it'll be in the final 10 games when it's like they're completely eliminated.
Yeah, you're right. I think if they're anywhere close, they're going to go for it. That's why I think like their win total is very interesting. Like you look at different places where it can be, I think it's opened up at like 26.5 and it's gone to 27.5. Some places to 28.5. Like I could talk myself into like over on all of it or under on all of it. But I think you're right. Like if they are somewhat in it, they're going to go for it. What I mean when I say tank, I mean like the last 10 games of the season. Like I think that they're going to stay somewhat close in the race. But that kind of goes with these type of questions that we were going to ask anyways, is like, is this player going to be on the roster at the end of the season? Like I have questions about a lot of these guys. Like is Jeremy Grant going to be on the roster at the end of the season? If it's a yes, then I think that they will be going for that play-in spot, right? But if they are out of it at that point and they're like, no, let's just try to get rid of these guys, then that's when the full tank goes on. But what do you think of that, Torey? Like, is Jeremy Grant going to? So do you think Jeremy Grant would be on the roster for the whole season and last past the trade deadline with the Portland Trailblazers?
My answer might shock you. I have no idea, but if I had to pick one right now, I would say he actually is on the roster at the end of the season, simply because I don't think a trade is going to materialize that looks good for this front office. They gave up that, 2025 Milwaukee first for him, as well as a couple second-round picks. And if they don't recoup that sort of value, then it looks like an L for the front office. And that trade was thought of as a steal for Jeremy Grant. So if you're not even able to recoup that much, then it doesn't look good. And you can sit here and say, oh, well, part of the reason they're not going to be able to recoup that much is because of the contract he's on, but Joe Cronin signed him to that contract. So with a loaded free agency this summer compared to this past offseason, I think teams might prefer to preserve some sort of flexibility under the luxury tax line to be able to be in play for sign and trades in the offseason for guys that are more impactful than him. I just think the market doesn't shape up to be too favorable, and I think that they might be close enough to a play-in spot where they just say, screw it, we're going for the play-in spot, we're going to keep Jeremy Grant, we can always trade him in the offseason where the market might make more sense for him and the Blazers might be able to get more back. So if I had to guess, actually, I think he is on the roster at the end of the season. Yeah,
this is a boring answer, but I agree with you because I think the same exact thing. I don't think they're necessarily in a hurry to trade Jeremy Grant because like Jeremy Grant's not going to lose value, right? Like no matter what his value is, it's never really going to go really high, but it's never going to go low either because like a good team can always use a guy like Jeremy Grant, right? A veteran that, plays hard, can knock down a shot or two, can make a play for himself. Those type of players are always needed on playoff teams. And so I don't think that if there's not the deal that like, blows your socks off. I don't think Joe Cronin and the Blazers make that deal. I think they just hang on to him. There's like, you know what, he's a good veteran to have in the roster, to have in the locker room. He's been around the game a long time. You know, he has great genes, you know, with his dad and his uncle, and it's like, yeah, like I don't necessarily think he's gone for sure this season. I don't think he lasts with the Blazers for his entire contract, but you could say that about a lot of players. So I agree with you. I think at the end of the season, Jeremy Grant is on that. But the guy is okay. Let me ask you this: like, some of the win total 28.5, some are 27.5, some 26.5. If the Blazers win total is at 26.5 wins, Torey, are you going to go over or under?
So I've gone back and forth between like that line and 33 wins, which is what they won last year. So I'm taking the over. I think we should just give straight up win predictions.
Okay, what do you want to do?
How close we'll get? I'll predict.
I have mine.
I'll predict. You know, I'm going to go with the same win total they had last year. I'm going to go with 33 wins.
Ooh. You're high on the Blazers then, huh?
Yeah, I think the lines are a little bit low on them. That does feel high. I mean, that's the thing.
They have 5 top 100 players according to ESPN.
Their top 8 is pretty good. The problem is they don't have a star, and the problem is they have so many question marks. Like that's why I don't think
star. You guys have been telling me how good he is. He should be that star.
Ant is going to be a fringe star in my opinion.
He's a guy that scores a lot of points and doesn't make his teammates better.
He's not going to be the number one on a
defense.
I think you hate a little bit too much. I think you hate a little bit too much on his defense. And actually, I think defensively this preseason there was many players worse than him. I think he is dedicated to the defensive end. I think he's gotten a little bit stronger, and I think that's been part of the issue for him early on in his career. All I ask you this year is have an open mind towards his defense, and I think we get wrapped up with like players like, oh, they're not a good defender, and then it's hard to kind of reanalyze them if they improve. So that's all I ask, like Blazer fans in general too, is just have an open mind towards Anthony Simons' defense, whether it's good or bad. You know, I will try and analyze it honestly, but I think Ant will be a fringe star caliber player, but he's not going to be the number one player on a playoff team. I don't think he's going to be that level of good.
Well, then how good is he? Like,
number one player on a play-in team, maybe on a 9th, 10th, 11th seed. Like on a playoff team, normally, if you're a solid playoff team, your second best player is at least like a fringe star caliber player, right? You know, you look at Sacramento, you look at Golden State, you look at the Clippers.
This is my thing, Torey. Like, if he's the star player on a play-in team, like, why do you and everyone else tell me it's, you know, incoming great season for Anthony Simons? Like, I undervalue him, but like, if he can't even be the best player on a play-in team, how good is this guy? Like, the team we just talked about, the team has 7-8 dudes that are pretty good NBA players, and if he's their best player, they're not a play-in team. Like, that's a dime a dozen. You can find those guys.
He's a top 50 to 60 player in the league. And people treat him like he's barely top 100. And people say he's a dime a dozen, and it's easy to find those guys. That's where we come from when we say breakout season, he's going to silence some doubters, is because of that sort of narrative. As well as, like, worst defender in the league, because people talk about him that way, and that's just simply not true. So that's where that talk comes from.
All right. We'll see. I don't get it. This is the same arguments that were made when CJ McCollum was in Portland. Like, oh, if you traded Dame and let CJ be the guy, Blazers would be great. He'd be an all-star player. Well, you know what? He got his own team in New Orleans and they were fine, I guess. Like, he didn't really improve very much. Like, I don't know. We'll see how it is with Anthony Simons. Maybe he improves a bunch, maybe he doesn't. But I'm not ready to say like, oh yeah, this is the guy. So we'll see. All right. I actually think the Blazers, the win total is perfect. Like 28, I think is about right for the Trailblazers. Like that's where I would put my money. If I had to bet on the exact total, I'd say 28 wins exactly. I think that this team is going to start out pretty well. Like not like win a bunch of games, not like last season where, you know, people were buying in and saying they were really good, because I wasn't. But like I think they're going to start out pretty solid. They're going to give a lot of effort at the start of the season, just like they did a season ago. So they have veterans on the team that have things to prove, and I think Anthony Simons is one of them. So I think at the start of the year, they are going to win some ball games that maybe we don't expect them to win. And we're like, all right, well, this team is sneaky solid. And then it kind of comes back down to life like it did last season. Maybe some injuries happen. And then the Blazers ultimately, end up tanking the last, 10, 15 games of the season. And it's a 28-win season. But I think at the start of the year, I think the Blazers are going to be okay. And then by the end of the season, it's kind of like, all right, this is the team we thought they were. Not even a play-in team, but I think, best case scenario, they do compete for that play-in spot. But Torey, I go 28 games would be my win total.
Yeah, a big part of me wants to go into the mid-20s. The 4 years I've had Blazers Uprise, I've overprojected them. So I'm probably doing it again by saying 33. It's just their top 8 is solid. They don't have the star, but
it is.
You look at their potential bench, and given who they played in practice, their bench might be Shaedon Sharpe, Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams III, Matisse Thybulle. I mean, that might be a top 10 bench in the league. Ooh. Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams, a lot of publications consider top 100 players. You got Shaedon Sharpe there, who looked like a guy who's a budding star if you just watch the end of last season, and the Matisse Thybulle, who's improved his three-point shot, good defender. Like, that's a really good bench. So that's where I struggle projecting the win total regarding this team, is they do have a lot of depth at the 6th, 7th, 8th man spots, and it's depth that they haven't had before. So it's just a completely different build. Now, as far as that bench goes, the reason why I bring up those 4 off the bench is because in their latest practice, they were running Toumani Camara with the starters. And apparently there's a chance he might start at small forward if you just kind of pay attention to that. Sean Highkin's already said that he'll get minutes this year in the rotation. He's pretty close with Cronin and credentialed and all that. So Toumani Camara might be the starting 3. Who is your prediction for who Chauncey Billups starts at small forward to start the season?
I mean, I still think it's Thybulle, but I think he's kind of just trying things in practice. I think Camara is going to play. I was going to ask you the question before that report kind of came out and we saw the video of him playing with the Stars. Like, is Toumani Camara going to play on opening night? And I could have argued like, no, he wasn't going to. But no, I think Thybulle starts. I think Camara does play. He's going to get a shot. I think that's what we learned in preseason. It's just like Jabari Walker last season, right? Like in summer league and preseason, like, okay, this guy can play in the NBA. He deserves a chance. That's how I feel about Toumani Camara. Like, it's preseason basketball. He shined in the preseason. Awesome. I know how excited we get about these guys, but until he proves it in the regular season, like, I'm going to back off my expectations. But I will say, like, he showed things that are really good in the NBA of being a role player and, be able to shoot the ball, be able to play some defense, be able to protect the rim, obviously, be athletic and be tall and big. Like, it's all the stuff the Blazers need. So I like it better than Chris Murray. I always did. Like, I just wasn't a Chris Murray guy, but I think Camara comes off the bench, but I don't know, Torey. I mean, I feel like it's a little early to say Toumani Camara deserves a start over Matisse Thybulle, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think even if Camara starts, Thybulle will play more. I think it might be kind of like that token starter situation that the Blazers have had in the past with Noah Vonleh. Nick Batum started his rookie year. It was kind of a similar situation.
But doesn't it put a lot of pressure on Toumani Camara to be like the defensive stopper guy?
I mean,
like, you're putting a lot of pressure on a late second round pick and be like, you're going to have to guard everybody.
Yeah, but I think it's something where if he struggles, then, you sub him out. Like, I don't know. I think he will end up with some games in foul trouble if he ends up guarding stars. I do think it is pressure, but I mean, why not throw the guy into the fire and see if he can handle it, see if he can live up to the pressure. It's not like he's a 19-year-old rookie, right? He's like an older rookie 23. Who was a role player at Dayton and is going to be able to play like a similar style and a similar role as he did at Dayton. It's not like he has to completely change his game where he was like a bucket getter at Dayton and now has to do all these things he hasn't done before. Like, his game translates pretty smoothly to the league. So I kind of like the idea of just throwing him out there and seeing if he can take that starting job and look good with it and run with it, because I think his game fits really well next to the rest of that starting lineup on the offensive end. And defensively, I thought he was one of the more impressive Blazers in the preseason.
Yeah, he was definitely impressive. I mean, I don't hate it. Like, if he starts, it's fine, because I do think this is a season where, the Blazers aren't necessarily trying to compete for the play-in or even try to compete for the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of mix and matching, figuring out what guys deserve to be on the roster, what guys you build with going forward. And so I'm with you. Like, give Camara a shot, give him a real shot, give Jabari a real shot, and see what they can do. You got to figure out if these guys can be role players or better with these teams. Sometimes these guys turn out to be really good players. So we'll see. I don't know that it'll be at the start of the season, like game one, we see Toumani Camara starting, but I've been wrong about that kind of stuff before. I think it would be pretty fun. I mean, to say, you know what, we get the Blazers get this guy in a trade kind of as a throw-in, and now he's the starting three. So I'm down with it. But what does that mean for Shaedon Sharpe? Like, that's last podcast we had, I believe, you were talking about Shaedon Sharpe needing to play 30 minutes a game. If Toumani Camara starts, I mean, Shaedon Sharpe's definitely not getting 30 minutes a game. Like, what does that mean for Shaedon? Because I'll tell you what, here's my opinions on Shaedon Sharpe in the preseason. Like, I love Shaedon Sharpe. I think he's going to be a really good player. He is still very raw when he plays basketball, and he has a lot of things he needs to get better at, and it just comes with repetitions. It's the fact that he never played any college basketball. Like, it was just a weird situation when he's getting to the league, and then he was a 19-year-old. They threw him out there. Wasn't much expected of him. I don't expect a lot of Shaedon Sharpe. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning curves still out of him, but you got to give him that shot. You got to play him. I just, like, if I want to like, we're talking start Toumani Camara, it's like, no, I would rather start Shaedon Sharpe over Toumani Camara, because the potential oozes off of Shaedon Sharpe, where you kind of know what Toumani Camara is. I mean, I know you guys are all good. I've talked about this with you before. Everyone brings up, Pascal Siakam. Everyone brings up all these second-round picks that turned out to be stars. Those are you don't find those guys. Like, those are so hard to find. I don't think Toumani Camara is that guy. Maybe he turns out to be it. I don't know, but Shaedon Sharpe has a much better chance of being that guy. So I would rather start Shaedon Sharpe over Toumani Camara. I worry that we're putting too much stock into this preseason hype of Toumani Camara getting blocks, and now we're just kind of throwing Shaedon Sharpe about the window saying, you're old news now, bro. 1 year, you're out.
I don't think it's that. And it's not just the preseason. Like, Camara was great in summer league for the Suns, and then apparently he's looked really good in training camp.
Jared Bayless was awesome in the summer league. Tons of guys. Josh Selby was summer league player of the year.
But Toumani Camara, but those guys are scores, right? Like, there's. Okay,
I understand that, Torey, but like we always bring up summer league about how awesome there's. Caleb Swanigan was awesome in summer league. Guess what? Guess who wasn't good in the NBA? It's Caleb Swanigan.
Caleb Swanigan's game didn't translate to the next level. I hated the Caleb Swanigan pick. I couldn't stand. I'm
just saying he was awesome in summer league. Trenton Watford was a summer league finals MVP of the game. Guess what? It is here or there, because we all hype up these dudes because it's summer league preseason.
Can I answer though?
No,
can I answer?
I'm tired of people talking about how awesome people are in summer league and preseason, and then they're gonna just translate the regular season. That's not how it works.
But all those guys were like clear-cut archetypes where they would look good in summer league and not look good in the NBA, right? Trenton Watford and Caleb Swanigan were too small for bigs and too unathletic and weren't good enough three-point shooters and had no position to guard defensively. Like, they were actually somewhat similar. Josh Selby and Jared Bayless were just bucket-getting G League caliber guards, right? That would, like, look good in the G League and torch Summer League, but the NBA level aren't good enough as alpha scorers to justify playing like alpha scorers, and they didn't know how to play off guys, right? That's why they weren't that good in the NBA. Toumani Camara is different in that has more size even than Trenton Watford. He's much more athletic than Trenton Watford. He recognizes things defensively much quicker than Trenton Watford. Like, it's easier for him to play like a 3-and-D role because he has the defensive part of the game. He's a better three-point shooter than both Caleb Swanigan and Trenton Watford.
I'm not saying he's not. That's not what I'm saying. But yes, I understand your point.
Yeah. So I just think his archetype is the type where, like, teams don't draft him because he doesn't have a ton of upside and he's 23 years old. So he drops to 52, but then he comes into the league and he can play defense and he can knock down threes and he's athletic and he can cut. And that's the makings of a really good role player. Now, I don't think he's going to be a star. If he is, then the Blazers won the Ayton trade because of Toumani Camara, not DeAndre Ayton. But I do think, like, he has all the pieces to be a really good role player in the league. And I think giving him the chance to maybe run with that starting job, maybe he doesn't, and maybe Shaedon Sharpe's starting at 10 games in, but I am okay with giving him the chance to run with it. I just think Sharpe should also get minutes. The problem is, and I'll segue this into one of our final talking points here, the problem is, at point guard, shooting guard, and small forward, you already have 5 guys, and a lot of them are important guys, that are playing at those 3 positions, and it's Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, Malcolm Brogdon, Matisse Thybulle, as well as Shaedon Sharpe. And if you start Camara at small forward, you're eating into the minutes at those 3 spots for those 5 guys. So that's where you're cutting minutes from somebody, and it probably might end up being Shaden Sharp. But if you remove Malcolm Brogdon from the equation, all of a sudden you can start Camara at the 3, and you can play Shaden Sharp 30 minutes a game, and you can play the other guys enough minutes. So it goes back to the Blazers should probably try and look to move Malcolm Brogdon as soon as they get a suitable deal. I know he's like the veteran guard that everybody likes and a good mentor and this and that, but just from a minutes breakdown, I think he makes so much sense to trade at some point in order to kind of clear a little bit of a logjam there if Toumani Camara is playing at the 3.
Does Toumani Camara average 5 points a game this season?
Yes.
6 points a game?
Yes.
8? What do you think
7.2.
averages? I love the exact. I'll take below 7.2 on that one.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like we are overhyping him because of preseason. And I understand all the points you're making, because he was a role player at Dayton. Like that was his role, was to be athletic and play defense and to cut and to dunk. So I think he could do it in the NBA. I don't know. It's like 4 preseason games, and he played really well in 4 of them. And guess what? Preseason games are fake basketball games. Like they don't matter. I think it's just we're overhyping it a little bit. The fact that he's even being considered to start is a little wild to me. But you know what? Do what you got. You got to figure out if he can play. I will say, like, I think he can play in the NBA. Like, I'll give him that. He deserved a chance. So good for him. Good for him, man. I hope it turns out. I need to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, I know you're not the type of guy to get excited about anything in the preseason. Some guys are definitely fool's gold in the preseason. I got good vibes about Toumani Camara, though, and I will say, I will put up my track record.
Your rec?
Guess my
league?
Let's not talk about that. Reddit will get mad at me. My track record of second round picks, I'd put up against anyone's the past like 4 or 5 years, and maybe it's luck, but just based off, this is going to sound ridiculous, but just based on vibes, I've actually done pretty well as to guessing second round picks that pan out.
Well,
big one.
What's your list? Like, I need
Austin Reeves.
I know that. I know the
Herb
Austin
Jones.
Reeves ones. Were
Naz
you?
Reid?
Do you have a list of the misses? Or are they all?
There's
or are they all
definitely
just
some
makes?
misses.
I could just say that I love everybody in the second round. I hit everybody.
I've done a much better job scouting guys that get drafted in the second round than guys at the top of the draft. Like, I was really high on Kira Lewis Jr.
Oh, me too. I thought he'd be good.
I thought he would be great. Like, I loved him.
Had some speed to him, man.
Yeah, unfortunately he got hurt, so, but, yeah, I have not done a good job scouting in the first round. Like, guys drafted in the first round, I have struggled the past few years. There is definitely some big misses in the first round. Second round guys, even down to like Najee Marshall, I really liked when he went undrafted, and now he's become a solid role player for the Pelicans. Like, he's a decent bench.
You just
piece.
love the Pelicans. That's what it is.
Trey Murphy, he was a first round pick that I hit on. But yeah, I think the Pelicans have done a good job.
Is Toumani Camara better than Herb Jones?
No. I mean, Herb Jones is, in my opinion, back like top 90 to 100 player in the league.
How good is he defensively, Herb Jones?
I would probably say a top 50 defender. Like, maybe not all defensive team, but he's like can be your number 2 defensive piece on a contending team.
Well, then how can you say he's in the top 100 of NBA players if he's not even if he's a top 50?
You're doing math right now, aren't you?
You said he's.
What's the math on this, Steven?
You just said he's a top 50, maybe top 50 defensive player. The dude doesn't even average double digits. He shoots 33% from 3. Like, I get it. He's a good player. He's a solid role player. But like,
top 50 doesn't mean he's 50.
Okay, well, then why would you say 50? If he's 20, why don't you say 20 then?
Because I don't know the list.
I like Herb
20
Jones. I'm not saying he's bad.
He's a really good defensive player. He's a really, really good defensive player and versatile defensive player.
Yeah, offensively, it's not great. It's fine.
He's okay.
That's fine.
He's okay offensively.
He's never averaged 10 points. We'll see if he does that at any point in his career. So
he can make the right pass though, make the right play. Like he's not somebody that can't handle the ball a little bit. He's no Al-Farouq Aminu, okay? He's no Mo Harkless.
Look, I just love to bust your chops on these things. I like Herb Jones. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying I feel like sometimes we overvalue these dudes that like are legitimately just role players. Like he's never
but then
gonna
we
be a star.
overvalue the guys that score 21 a game too.
We do.
So who do I undervalue then?
Who do you undervalue?
If I overvalue like the Herb Jones type of player and the Anthony Simons type of player, then who do I undervalue?
I would say you undervalue the big man, which I do too.
Like Nurk?
No, you overvalue Nurk, but you undervalue.
You
undervalue the Ayton.
I think he's a little bit better than Nurk.
I feel like you hate him, but
I think
I
made a top 100 list recently. I had Ayton between I think 60 and 70. Is that fair?
You act like he's a scrub, dude.
Did you have him top 50?
No, I would not have him top 50.
So we agree.
We do. I think we're close on Ayton. I don't know. I just hate everybody. That's my problem. I admit it though.
I'm just trying to figure out where it swings the other way. Because at some point, if I overvalue a couple archetypes, then I definitely undervalue something else.
Like Herb Jones is good. I think Toumani Camara, like best case scenario, he's Herb Jones. I don't think he is that, but like, unless you're like an elite defender, which Herb Jones is, right? Like I would say he's an elite defender, or at least he's on the verge of it. I don't know how valuable a guy like Toumani Camara is if he's not an elite defender.
I think Camara can be a better shooter than Herb Jones is. I think he can be a little better scorer than Herb Jones is. He's a little bit bigger than Herb Jones, I think.
Like that's what I would want. Like we talk about like what I would want, what I undervalue, overvalue. Like I want a guy that is really good at one thing. That's defensively. Or like really good at scoring the basketball. That's why I like Dame. Like Dame is really good at scoring the basketball. Is he great at other things? Not necessarily. Not a great defender. I don't think he necessarily makes his teammates that much better. Like he creates open room for them, but he doesn't give them the ball. It's I pass you the ball, you gotta get out of your way. I'm not driving to make people better, but he's an elite scorer. So I like him. I don't think Anthony Simons is an elite scorer. That's why I don't necessarily like him at this point in his career. I think Scoot has elite speed. I think Scoot has the ability to be an elite playmaker. That's why I like Scoot. So, like, if Toumani Camara or Herb Jones aren't elite defenders, I don't need a guy that shoots 33% that can score 10 points a game but is playing only okay defense. Like, I feel like you can find other players better than that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do think you undervalue the type of glue guy that does a lot of things decently. I think you undervalue that type of player. I think Nurkic is that type of player. I think Camara could be that type of player.
Let's look at the best teams in the NBA. Who are those guys? Like, who is that guy on Boston? Was it Marcus Smart?
Al Horford.
Yeah, Horford, I guess. Yeah, he's like a Hall of Fame level player though.
Because of
like for his
what
career.
Specific skill though? What specific skill was he? Was he a top 10 defender in his prime?
He's the best guy to guard Giannis. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a good defender for sure, but like Al Horford is a good example of that. Yeah.
He's awesome. He's an elite defender that can literally play the best defense in the NBA on Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is unguardable. Like
he's the type I don't think he's an elite defender.
And he can knock down
he's elite
threes.
against Giannis.
Yeah,
he's elite in general. I don't think he's elite, but he's elite against Giannis. Like there's certain guys where they match up better with certain types of players.
from 3-point range. Like
is that what he's what?
That's what he shot last season. 45%, 44.6.
He shot what?
44.6% last season from 3-point range.
I normally know all the stats and have them on top of my head. I had no idea that was
He's a
true,
career 37% 3-point shooter. Last year he was 44.5.
What did Camara shoot in the preseason? Probably like 50% from three. So
100. I don't think he missed. He didn't even hit the rim. But that's my thing. Like Al Horford is literally like a Hall of Fame level player. Like that's how good that guy is. Same with like Andre Iguodala. He's a perfect example too. Elite defender, maybe the best. I said this today on the radio. Like he might be the best on-ball defender in like my generation of basketball. Like it was Scottie Pippen when I was like a little kid, and now as I've gotten older, like it may be Iguodala. Like he may be the best on-ball defender. Like elite Hall of Fame level stuff. Al Horford is that. Like Herb Jones and Toumani Camara are not going to be that. So like I'm not going to overvalue those guys.
Yeah, but I'm not saying you should value them as much as prime Al Horford. They're role players, right? Like they're role players. Like Herb Jones would play for the Celtics.
Herb Jones would play for everybody because he's 6'8" and can actually
exactly
run around.
Exactly. So Herb Jones would be that guy for the Celtics.
We'll see.
Yusuf Nurkic is starting for the Suns this year. So
good luck with that.
Anyway, Brogdon, is he on the team at the end of the year?
No, he's traded by the trade deadline. I think Robert Williams is traded by the trade deadline as well.
Okay.
I think those are the two guys I would say I think are traded for sure. Jeremy Grant, I think, is on the team. If I had to bet, it would be Jeremy Grant on the team. Anthony Simons would be another guy I think has potential to be traded, but that all depends on how Camara develops and Shaedon Sharpe develops. But I think he's on the team. I think if I had to bet, I bet Brogdon and Williams are gone by the trade deadline.
I think
I don't think Robert Williams really wants to be here.
I don't want to predict injuries, but given how injury prone Robert Williams is, that might make it hard to trade him. So if I had to guess, I think Robert Williams III is still on the team, and
Brogdon's gone though, right?
I think Brogdon's gone, and then I think probably one of Grant, Simons, and Williams is gone. I wouldn't predict any one of those guys individually to be gone, but I think that Cronin is going to do something else, and I mean, what else would it be other than those three guys, right? So I don't know what else that is. Maybe it's end of the bench guys for a rotation piece, but like they got a top 8, and if Camara looks good, they got a top 9 that they're happy with, and that's really what a rotation is in the NBA. So it's just hard to predict right now, but I do think Malcolm Brogdon is definitely gone.
I feel like I was a little negative on Toumani Camara, so first off, I apologize. I think he's a solid player. I think he's fine. And to go off of that, echo that statement, I think he's much better than Chris Murray, and I think that he should play over Chris Murray. So, how about that?
Chris Murray is the type of player that I don't like in terms of what is he good at the NBA level. It was supposed to be.
I feel like you just copied my take.
He was 1 for 14 in preseason, and his form isn't the best, and he's not somebody that's going to shoot off the dribble. Like
my take on Chris Murray was he doesn't do anything at an NBA level. He doesn't run at an NBA level. He doesn't shoot at an NBA level. He doesn't defend at an NBA level. He doesn't move around, do anything. The only thing NBA level he does is his size. Yeah, he's big. He's big. That's it. Does nothing at an NBA level.
If you wanted to go for big, draft Leonard Miller. I think Leonard Miller is going to be good. I don't know if I'm rooting
for anybody to be bad besides Leonard Miller, because if he's any good, you are going to be bragging about that for so long. It's going to be so insufferable.
You might as well root against Julian Strawther too, because there's a perfect example, Stephen. He can definitely shoot the 3-ball, and guess what he's done in preseason for the Nuggets? Averaged like 20 a game because he can shoot the 3-ball, and then when he's ran off the 3-point line, he can drive, pull up from the mid-range, and he also has a really good floater, and he's 6'7". Like he's a guy that you can see come in and play a clear-cut role right away for a Nuggets team that, he's not Bruce Brown. They're completely different types of players, but needs a little bit of help in terms of their depth after losing Bruce Brown. And I think Strawther will come in and play right away because that dude's going to hit 3-point shots. It's not Chris Murray where it's like, well, hopefully he can be Keegan.
And the shots when Chris Murray misses, they clank, man. They're bricks.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm rooting for Chris Murray. I hope he proves me wrong. I wasn't a fan of the pick at the time, especially going the rebuild route. Swing for upside. If you're going to go for an NBA-ready guy, it needs to be somebody that has an NBA-ready skill that you can play in a NBA-ready role, and Chris Murray just isn't that to me. So.
Who has a better rookie season? We'll end it on this. Toumani Camara or Julian Strawther? Better rookie season. These are your two favorite players in the NBA. Who has a better regular season rookie regular season?
I think Julian Strawther, just because I think he's a perfect fit offensively for Denver's offense.
Is there room for him to play this season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
is he better than Christian Brown?
He's a better 3-point shooter than Christian Brown. Brown's a better all-around player and a better defender. And I think
better athlete.
I think Brown will be better for them next year because they need somebody to replace that Bruce Brown role, that hard-nosed defensive player role, because he's gone. He's in Indiana now. So, I like Christian Brown for them. I think that he's going to have very solid sophomore season for them. I think Strother fills that shooter role, especially if Michael Porter Jr. misses some time, like he's been a little bit injury-prone in his career. Strother can kind of slide into that role, and he's not quite Michael Porter Jr., but he can do some similar things in terms of shooting the ball.
This is, of course, the Locked On Nuggets podcast, as we're talking a lot of Nuggets here. No, Scorchin Trails, episode 3. Torey, I think we'll probably wrap it there. You got anything else you want to add before we go, or you got one more question for me? What you want to do here?
No, I think that's it. I think we pretty much covered everything. We said we were going to keep this recording till 30 minutes, and it's much longer than that.
Yeah, because you spout off, and then I have to respond.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
You gotta rant about preseason and
like I tell you what,
and Harry Giles and Trendon Watford and all the preseason guys that you don't like.
I'll say this. Out of all the preseason All-Stars, Toumani Camara is the best.
I can respect that.
Mario Hezonja, Trendon Watford.
I was never a Mario fan. I was the leader of the Mario is not him bandwagon.
Hezonja had that dunk on LeBron, and that's about all he had. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's so good." It's like, all right.
Wait till he gets in Portland's system.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. All right. Well, that'll wrap up here for episode 3, Scorchin Trails, Torey Jones Steven Vaughan. Of course, we're on YouTube, but now, like we said earlier, on Spotify, so check us out there. That's it. Yeah, so we'll catch you later, and we do episode 4 next week, and that'll be after the Trailblazers have their first regular season game. So we'll have some real basketball to talk about, and I, for one, am very excited to talk about real basketball rather than the fake preseason stuff. For Torey Jones, I'm Steven Vaughan. Do something, Blazers.